Hey students, so you see now that I have tidied up my space. In this tidied space, I have this lovely folder. This lovely folder, I tucked all of those extra pieces of collage that I decided not to use right here. Now, later on, I can go back through this and maybe design an entire artwork around this piece right here, or maybe around his face. I don't know, but I now have kind of a collection going, kind of like my crazy real life Pinterest board. In the meantime, I took the pieces of my collage that I wanted and I started arranging them on my book. So yesterday, you saw how we went ahead and painted the background. Today, we started collecting all the different pieces and different elements of that, and we started putting them together. So instead of having a floating Under Armour sign and a floating, Nike sign and that kind of stuff, this is more a work of art. And this is a work of art in progress. It is not a finished work of art by any means. So I am going to show you how to start to adhere pieces on here. I'm going to show you how I use Mod Podge versus how I use the glue. Both are totally fine. You don't have to get the Mod Podge if you don't want to. And I'm not sure, I think I said in the earlier video, 2 fluid ounces, not 4 fluid ounces. I'm going to go fix that on the supply list, and I really, really apologize about that. I do want to point out, see my Band-Aid here? I was using my X-Acto knife unsafely, trying to dig the extra bit of plastic that was wrapped around here, and I was holding it like this and gouging it, and it just so happened that I gouged it straight into here. So when I went to do that, I should have probably set it there. And actually, I probably just should have used my scissors. I should not have used the X-Acto knife. In the meantime, I've hurt myself, so please be careful with the X-Acto knives. I have sliced this finger and this finger to the point that I needed stitches with X-Acto knives. So know that they are a fantastic tool. They are also a very dangerous tool. But I started using them in high school. That was part of what we needed for our art classes. And I think that it's appropriate time to use them as long as you're a careful human being. Alrighty, so as I look at my camera, it looks a little blurry. Hey, that helps. Okay, so nothing is glued down. I've just kind of started taking my elements and kind of arranging them on here. And I am going to pick this up, and I have some options. I've given myself some options. If you have just glue, use just glue. Your glue can be used straight from the glue bottle. Totally fine. When we're doing a collage, we do want to make sure that we do get all the edges. So if I lay my piece of paper straight down on my glue stick, I can actually kind of get that edge in there a little bit better. If I have it laid out on the table, I end up with stripy glue stripes on my table, and now I have glue on my thumb. There we go. And I can take this, and I am making the design choice to leave this black line here. You can go over top of it, but if you go all the way across, when I take my book and I go to close my book, that's going to rip this. So I would have to probably glue up to like maybe here, close my book, then put glue on here and wrap it around. But I'm just making the choice to kind of let this black stripe just be kind of a border. Over here, I'm hanging off the edge. So I'm just going to take my scissors and I'm going to snip them off. Another way to go about doing this is, now when we use wet glue, and you guys were young, we used to do dot, dot, not a lot when I worked in the elementary. So dot, dot, not a lot. Unfortunately for collage, that leaves a lot of little spaces here to peel up because I'm going to be using this sketchbook all the time. So it would be not a bad idea for you to have something to lay down on your table surface. And I should have probably gotten a newspaper or something. If you laid out wax paper, that's kind of nice because then you can just pick that up. In this case, I'm taking my, you can't see me do this. Haha, I'm sorry. I'm taking my finger and I'm actually spreading the glue out. I could use a paintbrush to spread this glue out as well. It's entirely up to you. I am covering the whole thing. If you happen to have baby wipes in your house, it's kind of good while you're doing collage to have those actually kind of setting to the side. I really wanted to do the bottom things first because things are going to be overlapped and layered. And I pulled him up. So he is now going to become one of the bottom pieces and things are going to be placed on top of that little guy. These bottom pieces down here, I had that whole piece that went something like, I think it went along here. And so what I did is I cut it apart, and because I like that color continuation all the way across, but I needed something to go all the length of my picture because I'm tying it all in together. You don't have to do the front and the back. I'm making the design choice to do the front and the back. I think it's kind of fun. So it is entirely up to you if you just do the front cover or the front and the back cover. Had a young lady ask me, you know, when you guys were in middle school or elementary school, you were encouraged to decorate your notebooks. And at some point or another, you know, all of us teachers are like, blah, no decorating at all. And if you love this process, decorate all of your notebooks. I don't mind. It's just kind of for your own fun. So this right here is my Mod Podge. If you have Mod Podge, that's fine. If you don't have Mod Podge, it's not a big deal because you saw how I used my glue stick to stick it down. You saw how I used my regular Elmer's glue to stick it down. Mod Podge is a water-based sealer glue finish. And the one that I'm using today is matte. You can get them with sparkles. You can get them with a glossy shine to them. It's entirely, you know, up to you. So what I can do is I can paint my Mod Podge straight on here. Sometimes I'll just pour some Mod Podge like right in the lid. Or if my paintbrush is really, really clean and what I'm doing is clean, I'm not doing anything really messy, I'll just dip my paintbrush right into the bucket. But if I'm doing something really messy, I need to make sure that I pour a little bit of Mod Podge out, because when your Mod Podge gets infiltrated by like the color red, you'll accidentally paint pink on top of your collage, and it's kind of fun because it looks like a pink filter, but if you don't want that, it can be disappointing and frustrating. So I glued that right straight down. I'm not going to do it right now, but in a few minutes after everything's laid down, I'm going to actually paint a layer of clear Mod Podge across the top of this. The edge of my paper was a little rough, and see, there's the edge of my notebook. I don't know if you can see where it's kind of folded down. I'm not terribly worried about that. I can cut it off later, or I can like kind of wrap it around or something like that. Let's see. This guy over here, he's going to go down in here. If I get a little bit on here, not really a big deal because I'm getting ready to put stuff all over. Make sure that this is going the direction that I want it to. I am taking it off the side of my notebook because my notebook has like a rounded edge there, and I would like to cut that later. I am going to go on any of the edges and just paint a little bit more. And if I was using Elmer's glue, I would try to just get some of that along that edge. Bop, 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 bop. I have to finagle this to get this in the position that I want to get it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this first. And then after I get this placed down, I'm going to play with it. So you guys are going to see me play with it. Sometimes failure comes from play, but sometimes good learning situations come from play. We don't use that word enough, and art should be playful. Sometimes it's serious playful, but with play we can fail. And failure is not a dirty word. It is not a bad thing. It is a totally normal, 100% human experience. And we are really mean to ourselves sometimes. And if you were in here and you were telling me, Mrs. Harwood, I just can't do this or I can't do that. Well, nobody starts out being able to do something. As a tiny baby, you couldn't walk. And that was something you had to learn to do. And you stood up and you fell over. And you stood up and toddled a few steps and you fell over. And you stood up and you toddled a few more steps and grabbed a hold of everything along the way. And you fell over. And guess what? You were laughing and giggling and having a good time, and your family was cheering for you. And through the epic failures of falling over and over again, you learned how to walk. So I'm painting below here, and I'm doing this quickly because if I let this beast dry, I'm not going to be able to do what I need to do. If it tears a little bit, no big deal, because I'm going to glue it all back down in a couple minutes. There's probably an easier way to do this. You find your way through it. It's all good. So I'm going to put my head down because why should I not be on here? Because it's mine. I think I'm going to get fabric. I should have done this before, but a different kind of fabric, and I'm going to make myself a big scarf or something nutty. So there's that. Have this crazy disembodied hand over here. And I liked him kind of letting the fish kind of drift straight out of his tail. And this is a crazy thing to just be able to take a photo of. So clearly, whenever I'm at the zoo or whatever, I'm taking selfies with all the animals. So there, see, I'm taking selfies with my little crazy koi fish that are yin-yanging together here or something. I don't know. I might have to, I don't know if I like this transition here. I might play around with that and think about that for a minute. In the meantime, my outer space ocean scene, I'm going to need some star pieces. So you can use your Elmer's glue. You can try your glue stick. Glue stick might not secure this down as much as we want it to be secured down. Elmer's glue will secure it pretty well. If you happen to even have a product called polyacrylic, that's a clear coat acrylic that people use to seal things. I don't know. Sometimes parents have insane things in the garage. That polyacrylic looks like a paint jar. It's usually sold in a smaller can. I have some at my house right now because I was going to do like a kitchen remodel, and it was one of the products I needed for my kitchen remodel. You can actually use that like I'm using this Mod Podge. So I have that piece glued down. I'm going to go ahead and pull this on top and put some glue under here and put that on top because I kind of like this on top and this transition. I'm kind of enjoying kind of playing with, what's in front and what's behind. What I tried to do also, I tried to take colors and shapes and things that happened on this side and use the same bits and pieces on this side, thinking compositionally. So I'm going to put you right there on top. To just balance it out a little bit. It brings unity to the overall piece. Big fan of unity. I chose the yellow and the blue for contrast purposes. I think yellow and blue, yellows and oranges and stuff look really nice against blues, especially since this yellow is a really warm yellow with these bright oranges in there. And then my blue already has kind of those yellows and oranges inside of the stars. And so it's just kind of playing with those colors and just repeating the same colors. So I left it a kind of a split complementary palette with some neutral colors. So blues and oranges are opposites on the color wheel. And then blue and green, actually blue and green, are next to each other on the color wheel. So whenever you have two things that are next to each other, those are analogous colors, two colors next to each other. And then the color opposite is a complementary color. And so this is a split complementary. So that just means analogous colors with a split complementary as a means of kind of getting your attention. I'm purposely using these words because I would really like to encourage you all to start thinking about and using art vocabulary. And I will post on Canvas some of this terminology. A lot of you probably remember it, but some of you, especially my students, we were kind of making stuff up not making stuff up at the end of the year, but where I had a larger color unit kind of planned, it wasn't as detailed as I would have preferred it to be. So I peeled that up. That one's down. I'm going to put my crazy purple swirly thing. So when I was looking for images on my in the video too, this was one of them that I found at the very end. Now I don't want to put that there after all. I thought I did, but I don't like how it blocked him. But now that I have this here, I have it started, I'm going to give it a little bit more of an organic line so it's not super, super, super straight there. Kind of thought that might be cool, but I don't like how this kind of goes into that. So I'm just going to let him be this way. Actually, I got an idea. Yeah. So collage, you can go in with a plan and then you can alter the plan. And there's nothing wrong with this because this is yours. This is your artwork. I'll put that down there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish putting all this stuff down and then I'm going to show you the final step. So I'm going to hit pause on the video. We're already at 20 minutes. And then I'll come back. When I'm finished, it'll look like nothing happened, but I'll be finished and everything will be down. And then I'll show you how to do the whole top. So we'll see you in a minute. Alrighty, I have everything all placed down where I want it to be placed down. If I was using just the glue method, I would go back and I would start feeling where things are a little bit loose. And I would be taking my glue bottle or glue stick and I would try to be putting things down and kind of smoothing them out. You'll be able to see a little bit of the glue later on, but it's better than it just peeling up entirely. So like here, I would probably do that. If I was using the glue stick method, same deal. I was going to actually suggest you paint Elmer's glue over everything if you have Elmer's glue. I'm a little bit worried that if you paint Elmer's glue over top of everything, it'll be, sometimes Elmer's glue leaves kind of like a grayish cast to it. It might or might not be a bad thing. It just depends on what you as the artist are looking for. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pour my Mod Podge into my little container. And I have my paintbrush. Make sure your paintbrush is really clean for this. And I am going to actually paint a layer of Mod Podge on my entire cover. And as I run into those little spots that are sticking up, so like right here, I'm going to kind of jab at my paintbrush and kind of paint it down. Now, on mine, my cover wasn't entirely smooth. It was an old notebook that was my daughter's, and it had some wrinkles in it, and the wrinkles are showing up in my collage. And this is an artwork that I created for me. I'm not creating it for anybody else. Nobody's going to be buying it. This is just my 2020 notebook that's going to keep all of my stuff. So if that happens, it happens. My notebook last year that I showed you with another one like this, I kind of am imagining myself to be visitors of these crazy little worlds that I've created in my notebooks. I had pink on my paintbrush, which is why my paintbrush wasn't entirely clear or clean. And I started, when I was demonstrating, I just kind of grabbed a brush off of my desk and ended up, it mixed with my Mod Podge, and I ended up painting kind of this pink glaze over top of everything. And for a while, it almost looked like the stuff in the bowl was bloody and coming after me, which was not my intention. At that point, I wasn't able to change it, so I just kind of had to suck it up. And so you saw, like, when I was coming over top of this, I don't know if you saw that, it's kind of peeling up, and so I'm just like using my paintbrush to push it back down. Paint on the edge here. So you can use this same method on just about any surface that will take glue. So if you ended up creating a crazy cardboard sculpture and you wanted to collage little tiny red pieces of paper in one section of it over and over again, you could totally do that. We have several artworks hanging here at Ryle, and one of the artworks, they wanted a quote from no, actually, this one, they took the book To Kill a Mockingbird, and because they had just gotten done reading it, the artist did. And what they did is they tore out pages of the actual book. It was like one of the books that your teachers have you annotate. So it was kind of destroyed for anybody else being able to go back and read it. So they tore out all those annotated pages of To Kill a Mockingbird. They Mod Podged them down into a picture frame, and they drew and painted a giant mockingbird on top of it. Really cool piece of artwork. There was another student who took pages from an Emily Dickinson poem book, and they Mod Podged those like haphazardly, just kind of scattered those on a big canvas, and then painted a portrait of Emily Dickinson on the top of it and wrote out a quote by her on it. That's another one of the artworks that's hanging in the building. I think it's hanging. Either that or it's still sitting in my classroom and I need to get it up on the walls. So what I'm doing is just finishing this up. I'm going to hit pause on the video, and then I'm going to show you kind of some surface treatments that you can do after this dries. So I'm here finishing this up. I am really painting this really fast. If I paint the same area over and over again, it will make the paper too wet and it will bubble up. So keep that in mind as you're working on your stuff. There's that neck region. We're going to have to play with that. You can see kind of on the other side where this is already starting to dry out. The piece will actually kind of retain some of the texture that I'm leaving behind. So I'm kind of like leaving not only the paint, the original paint that I put on here, I left it kind of clumpy, or kind of, I left the paint strokes in there. I'm really not doing anything to get this really smooth. If you work a long time at it, you can do that, but I like paint strokes showing in my own artwork. That is a very kind of individualized choice. So this is kind of coming up here, and so I'm jabbing some Mod Podge under there and coming back on top of it. After it dries, I might see other places that need a little bit more goop. But this is all where it needs to be. This right here needs to be washed out as soon as possible because Mod Podge will dry this into a hard, nasty, impossible to ever use again paintbrush. So keep that in mind. If you got Mod Podge on your table, go ahead and get that cleaned up really fast. Go put this in some water, scrub this up, and I say down here that you can't see, but whoa. Yeah, I don't know. I got Mod Podge on here, and so I'm going to try to get that cleaned up. But what I wanted to do is show you one more thing. So this one right here was the glossy Mod Podge, and as I move it, you can kind of see where it's just kind of shimmers a little bit. This right here is what I'm going to do to these fish when they dry. So I think I talked about this before, but I painted on there with white acrylic paint, and then I used just a black ink pen and drew right on top of it. I think I used a Micron pen, but I think any black ink pen would probably work. So you can continue adding to this. Clearly, it doesn't always stick perfectly. For the sake of argument, I might go down there and add that. That one I painted the front and the back, but I didn't do anything fancy with the back. This one from a couple of years ago, these were just like little watercolor pen and ink things that I did. And when I painted that one, I purposely went back and scraped some paint off an area. So that's the black and white of the actual composition book you see there. And the front and back, this is where my picture went over top. And you can kind of see where I had to be careful with how that picture wrapped around front to back. And then last year's, we painted it and then laid this entire level of like book pages that were covered in black paint on top of it and then collaged on top of that. So the surface here was built up before I even put this on there. The back on this one is kind of boring. That's actually, you know, the pages that were there were under here. And then in some places it was ripped away so that you could kind of see a little bit of the paper and, I don't know, crazy stickers I got throughout the year. I tucked them on there. So hopefully that's enough information to get you guys rolling to make really, really cool collages. I can't wait to see them. I'll have the project due dates set up in Canvas, and if you guys have any questions at all, please contact me. Thanks.